What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are breaking down and continuing Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 1.0. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube at this point. If you are new, yes, would love for you to stick around and join the community. You guys know what's up. We're on the road to 10K. Want to be able to make it there by the end of the month. That's a big stretch goal, but only y'all can make it happen. Lots of fun stuff planned for February, including team-based draft guides as well as the full launch of the membership program, including all 22 tape studies. So feel free to check those out come February. So let's get right into this. Again, be able to just look below my face on my board. Below that, going to be all the great ways to get involved in the community, as well as take advantage of our two sponsors of this episode, which is Olipop as well as UnderDog Fantasy. We will be bringing in another sponsor in the month of February, which is going to be very, very exciting. Let's get right into this. DJ obviously is, essentially what people like creators like myself kind of dream to be. So shout out to DJ for being able to make this such a, exciting opportunity for us to be able to at least express our opinions and have fun while doing it. So again, cheers to DJ, guys like him, Connor Rogers, Trevor Sikkema, Mike Renner. Those guys are the ones who really give those of us in the community that are, doing it on our own a lot more hope and a lot more excitement, because we get to see that guys get to still have success while having a great time. Let's get right into this. Starting out with the number 1 overall selection. Yes, we are continuing this for a second round. This is one round, but I'm going to continuing it for another. The Bears select Caleb Williams. There was no suggestion as to where Justin Fields would go in this mock draft, so that's where I will be essentially leaving it to chance where he'll actually end up. We're not going to be factoring it into the second round, bottom line, but we'll have to just stay put before getting into that. But the Bears go Caleb Williams. You have a lot more cap flexibility when you're not paying a quarterback an extraordinary amount of money. You have this pick essentially for free, and then you also end up getting someone who's extremely talented. Justin Fields is a very talented player as well, but we haven't seen him take the true progression step to an elite quarterback just yet, and it's starting to run out of time when you actually have someone who has proven to at least show some elite quarterback talent in the very, very recent memory. Justin Fields was incredible there at Ohio State. I'm an Ohio State fan. I'm pretty damn inclined to love Justin Fields, and I do love him, but it is very logical to go after Caleb Williams unless the compensation package for moving back is just that good, like it was last year. At pick number 2, the Commanders go Drake Maye. Drake Maye's ceiling is just ridiculously high. You do get to see those high-level throws, especially the big-time throws. It's like, yeah, I could totally see that ending up translating to the NFL and just being something that could, essentially be a top 10 quarterback. Now, my big issue with him is inconsistency, and I don't believe that has really been remediated over the past year. That's my big issue with him coming into the year. It's why I'm not overly sold on Drake. But if you put him in the right offensive system with a right quarterback coach, you continue tweaking his mechanics, and then you just allow him to continue being more consistent as an overall passer, I think this could end up working out. But it's safe to say I'm not fully sold on Drake Maye. But those in the community, even I was talking to Brett Coleman back in summer, they're saying Drake Maye might be even better than Caleb Williams. I'm not there, but, happy for those of y'all who do believe in that. I always love being proven wrong. CJ Stroud's a great example of this. He ended up being my number 8 or 9 player in the draft, but, for a while, I didn't really think he was going to be the best quarterback. I didn't even have him actually as my number 2 quarterback. I had him tied number 2, if not number 3, behind Anthony Richardson, which, to be fair, Anthony Richardson looked pretty damn good before as well, but CJ really has ascended. I always say I love to be wrong about players I'm down on, because good football is always better than being right. Hoping the same situation happens here with Drake Maye. Patriots then select Jayden Daniels. Mayo made it pretty damn clear that they're going to try to address the most valuable position, and it's pretty obvious that quarterback's the most valuable position. Jayden Daniels is an incredible player. Mayo's been on staff, so it's not like they're going to be completely transitioning away from the trajectory that they were going. And so they were bringing on guys like Malik Cunningham, who had this athleticism and this mobility, and even Matt Corral, my former high school quarterback. We just love him to death, hoping that he is doing well right now. But they at least show some sort of value there with the athleticism at the quarterback position. This would be right in line with that. Jayden Daniels is my QB2, but he also needs to work on his middle of the field vision because it's certainly lacking, but he also sometimes over relies on his mobility. And that's why I have him as right below my blue chip tier. Then we got the Arizona Cardinals going Marvin Harrison Jr. It makes sense. I always go Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Cardinals anyways. Tried to switch it up this past week and, slightly got berated for it, but well-deservingly so. To be fair, the Cardinals moved down one spot and only gained essentially a second-round pick for losing the best player in the draft. I get it. I understand. You'd probably want a little bit more compensation to be able to feel a bit happier about transitioning from a wide receiver pick over to a tackle selection. So I get it. I do. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in the class. It makes sense to go after him. Chargers go Rome Odunze here at pick 5. I haven't been fully sold on Rome Odunze, and I know that, I have a very unique opinion quite a few times. Not going to say that my opinion is necessarily correct, but he's definitely one of those players that, especially for those all-22 tape studies that will be coming in the next month, he's going to be someone who will be featured many times in those. So I'm very excited to continue digging in the tape. For someone who's hinted at playing with a punctured lung and a broken rib, I always tip my cap off for guys who put their team first because it shows that they really do have a crazy high work ethic. And a lot of times work ethic ends up being the ultimate deciding factor as to whether a player will be an elite weapon or someone who's just going to be a what could have been story. So shout out to Rome. Great build at 6'3" and over 210 pounds. Chargers should be looking for a weapon as well. But the guy who I'd be going after is Malik Neighbors. I think that a lot of people would be in the same boat here. I have Malik Neighbors relatively low on my board. That's just because I fell in love with a ton of players. To be fair, all of my board is TBD. There are some players that have been reevaluated, so those are not TBD. But, everything until the last minute of tape is watched, until the Senior Bowl comes around, and we'll be there as well. So maybe we could say hi to DJ over there. Then we'll decide on it from there. So it is what it is. But, Malik Neighbors, to me, he is my wide receiver too. And now by an actual noticeable margin, he just has such good separation skills. He's worked on his route running and, just very, very hard to find someone who could really change the game the way he can. I wasn't a huge fan of Jameson Williams when he came out. To be fair, I was still a fan of him. I had him as like an early second-round pick. That's not crazy. I just thought he was a little bit more limited in his role. Malik Neighbors has a lot more availability in terms of the role that he can play. So for me, I'm a big fan of guys who can wear many hats, and it's not really more role specific. Malik Neighbors is incredible. The Giants have been looking for a player like Malik Neighbors for a long time now, and now they get him. Pick 7, Titans go Joe Alt, the pick I make every single time. If he's on the board, the Titans will be not mistaken to ever consider Joe Alt. At least, you got to run into the podium. Joe Alt's an incredible player. At pick 8, we got the Atlanta Falcons going Dallas Turner. This team has been pretty damn desperate for an elite edge rusher for a hot minute now. And Dallas Turner could definitely be that kind of player. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the 3rd round pick from the Jaguars. If they end up re-signing Calvin Ridley, if I'm not mistaken, the 2nd round pick becomes theirs. There's a whole lot of conditions that came with that. But, Falcons could be loading up on more and more draft capital as time goes on. So, that allows a little more flexibility to go after an edge rusher like Dallas Turner at this point. I don't know if the role that they're looking for, which, to be fair, I know their DC, I think, is getting some interviews right now. So we'll see what the actual system is when a new DC might come in. But I don't really believe the 240-pound frame is what the Falcons are looking for. Looking at the guys who they brought on 1-year deals, it's going to be more that 260-plus pound frame there with Bud Dupree. Of course, Zach Harrison is in that bunch, who's 270, but, I'm not 100% sure exactly the route that they will be trying to go after. Dallas Turner is my number 1 edge rusher, however, so I am not going to disagree with the value. At pick number 9, the Chicago Bears go Jared Verse. They do need that compliment there. They got Caleb Williams, now Jared Verse. It makes sense. Now, I'm not going to complain too much about that. I think I made that pick myself quite a few times as well. At pick 10, my number 1 right tackle in the class, Talise Fuaga. This was he goes to the New York Jets. I am a massive fan of Talise. Y'all know this. You can look back on my first ever tackles video before the season started. Talise was actually graded above Olu Fashanu back then, which was ludicrous. Put my balls on the line. And, some players put my balls on the line. Doesn't work out. Some players like Talise Fuaga, it does. I've always thought I've had quite a knack for looking at offensive tackle talent. So it's nice to see that sometimes you can see the gem before it becomes the gem. And Talise is exactly that. Huge fan of him. Great instant impact in the run game. And then you also have that pass blocking upside there. I'd prefer maybe to go after a Marius Mims just because of the fact that Talise is, I believe, the best in terms of day one in run blocking. But I don't know, something about Marius Mims he excites me as a pass blocker a little bit more than Talise. And with Aaron Rodgers being so old and potentially injury prone, I would be opting for the higher potential in terms of a pass blocker. At pick 11, the Vikings go Byron Murphy. My big, revelation of the past couple weeks is studying Byron Murphy and ending up with him as my IDL1, right behind Jerzon Newton. But Byron Murphy has an incredible frame as well, about 310 pounds. And, there's just a lot that I really love about his game. Minnesota would not be remiss to take Byron Murphy. They do definitely need some help on the defensive interior. They need some help on the edge rush. Their D-line needs help. And Byron Murphy is a really, really solid player. At pick 12, the Denver Broncos go Terrion Arnold. You're going to be getting another Bama corner to pair up with your superstar Bama corner. Terrion Arnold is my number one corner in the class. So, I'm not going to get too much into it, but his nickname is Ghost. Pretty damn badass. And the Broncos, going BPA is never a bad idea. I don't know if that's exactly what Sean Payton will do, but Terrion Arnold arguably is the best player available. I would say that the next player that's taken, Olu Fashanu, is going to be a better choice because we heard Garrett Bowles talk about how he kind of just wants to win. Could be some issues there that they might want to put Olu Fashanu in for the long run, but not going to complain about Terrion Arnold. Regardless, we just talked about it. Olu Fashanu goes at 13 to the Raiders. He did have a little bit of a step back this year, but I think that he's been able to show relative consistency. I didn't think he actually had that dominant of a 2022 season. I saw him actually take a step up this year, but I think it was a step back, similar to what happened with JT Tuimoloau this year, is a step back in terms of the expectations. People, I think, believe that Olu Fashanu was going to be head and shoulders the number one tackle of the class and, be almost, on a Trent Williams level. But he's shown that he does allow pressures and he's hyper athletic. He's actually a really good run blocker. He gets very, very, very much underrated as a run blocker. And I just love it. Keep hating on him, honestly. Like, I had him come out in my tackle 4 at the start of the year. That's because, I have left tackle and right tackle combined. He was my left tackle 2. And right now he is my left tackle 1, but re-evals might change that. Regardless, this guy's incredible. And the Raiders, I don't even care what's going on. It's BPA. You go BPA when you get a talent like Olu Fashanu on the board. Pick 14, the Saints go Bo Nix. I really do like Bo Nix, and I'm glad to see DJ does as well. I think I've gotten a little bit of prospect fatigue on Bo to the point where I start knocking him a little bit down farther and farther. I do have him tied with Drake Maye. I know, call me crazy. It is what it is. But, to also be fair, I do have Bo and Drake lower on my board than 14. I have them in my 20s, but I think Derek Carr is not the answer. The question is, do you believe that the Saints would take a quarterback in the first? I don't know. So Bo Nix could certainly work. I think he's actually a really solid combination of what Taysom Hill was supposed to be and what he is. He has the quarterback aspect that you're looking for. Maybe he doesn't have, big play ability 24/7 because he likes to be a little more conservative. 6.7 yards, average depth of target, I believe, over the past year. But, he had really good weapons, a really short range scheme as well. And he took some big shots and they paid off. He does hit those big plays. So I'm a big fan of Bo. I just don't know if the Saints would be willing to pull the trigger because you got someone like Brock Bowers, which now I can scroll because my number 2 player was taken off the board here. Brock Bowers is unbelievable talent. Yeah, positional value could certainly be pushing them down the board, but we did see quite a few tight ends ascend to a pretty noticeable degree, especially with Sam Laporta's success. I do think there might be an increased value on the tight end position, especially for someone like Brock, who could be competing with Sam Laporta in that category. At pick 16, the Seahawks go Troy Fautanu. He will end up being the left guard. But, I think this is going to be a fine selection. I will never shame a team for boosting their O-line. I think Troy Fautanu would be an elite interior offensive lineman. He is a top 32 player for me. I don't know if the Seahawks need to spend this type of draft capital on a left guard, but they don't really have too many positions to target. And also the interior offensive line class thinned out a little bit. I always dreamed of Donovan Jackson being there for him in round number 3 and then them snagging him, but not going to happen. So I'm not going to shame this pick. It would still be a B+, if not an A- selection. Troy Fautanu is a great player. Keep him there in the state of Washington. Jaguars go Quinion Mitchell. I'm not fully sold on Quinion just yet, but the statistics are ridiculous. Again, TBD on him. He needs a full re-eval. But the Jaguars, I've gone corner for him quite a few times, and so I do understand the position. Pick 18, the Bengals go J.C. Latham, a pick I've done several times. I would hate to do this to my Steelers, but I would take Amarius Mims here. I already explained why with the Jets pick, so it's pretty obvious that 18, 8 spots later, so I would still think the same way. But also, you could screw over my favorite Steelers by going after, the running mate there with Broderick Jones. But J.C. Latham's still a very, very solid right tackle and fills a massive need. Rams then go Leatu Latu. I'd be actually going after Amarius Mims here as well, just to kick him to left tackle, because I think the Rams need a future at left tackle. But Leatu Latu is a really solid edge rusher. He's ascended up my board very, very quickly. I think his football awareness has increased year over year, and that is a big plus for me. It at least shows that he's getting more comfortable with the game and that the ceiling is higher than what it has already shown, which is already pretty damn high. At pick 20, of course, this is the best pick in the draft for a Steelers fan. I am wearing my TJ Watt hoodie here, mainly because it's freaking cold in Dallas. It's literally freezing here. It's below 32. It is what it is. But Amarius Mims, I'm a sucker for storylines. I'm pairing him back up there with the rest of the Georgia Bulldogs that we have would be a dream. Pick number 21, the Dolphins go Brian Thomas Jr. There is kind of a need for another wide receiver there in Miami, and Brian Thomas at 6'4", 205 is a unique build that they do not have. I do think I would rather go after an offensive lineman here, 3 interior offensive linemen up for a contract, including one that tore his ACL, RIP to that. So sorry, Connor Williams. But, you also are looking potentially to replace Terran Armstead down the line. I think there's a really good amount of options there, but Brian Thomas would not be a bad pick. I think he complements what you have with Tyreek and Jayden very, very well. Eagles then select Tyler Guyton at 22. I get why you're essentially planning for Lane Johnson's replacement. I'm pretty sure he said he has a couple good years left in him, so I think that might be on the back burners. That's the one reason why I say pause on a pick like this, but it is understandable. Stoutland is a big fan of developing offensive linemen. I don't know if this would be very, very much different. So Tyler Guyton wouldn't be a bad selection. I just prefer a DB or something that'd be a little bit more of an immediate impact, especially given Lane's comments. At pick 23, the Texans take Chop Robinson. He's been getting a lot of hate for some reason. Again, it's another player that didn't take that crazy step up, and I don't know. I love when people get excited about players. That's one of the best things about sports is getting to see how genuinely excited people get. But don't let that ruin the reality of the fact that Chop Robinson is still an amazing player who continued to develop. Maybe he didn't become like a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL right away, but Chop Robinson is a phenomenal player. Now, unfortunately, the Texans lost last night. So sorry for that. Or I think it was yesterday. So RIP, but I do think that the Texans need to get some run support. They got killed on the outside, but they also got killed up the gut. And defensive interior is probably the way I would go, but in a very, very divided edge class where you have a really top heavy and then there's a massive gap after the first round dudes, essentially. I get it. Chop has crazy potential. Yeah, Will Anderson there, Jonathan Grenard as well. There's a good edge rotation you can have there. take the upside. I get it. Higher wins above replacement position, but Tavondre Sweat is just gets me excited. Gets me excited to see if he could be there. Dallas Cowboys, Jordan Morgan. I take that pick myself. Makes sense. They need a future left tackle. Green Bay Packers go Graham Barton. Very, very eerily similar to what they did essentially with Zach Tom, who was a former center playing left tackle, who was probably going to play interior, who ended up being able to play as a tackle. Graham Barton, I think, is more destined towards the interior of the offensive line, but they do value that versatility. I prefer to go after a defensive back, but Graham Barton, again, I'm not going to shame a team for trying to win the trenches. The battle of the trenches is key. Tampa Bay Buccaneers go Ennis Rakestraw Jr., another player who I am about to give a full eval, but Buccaneers should be looking for some extra DB support if they end up keeping Baker Mayfield. Reports are that there is mutual interest, so that'd be great. Cardinals then go Cooper DeJean. Should be going a little bit earlier because that versatility and athleticism. I think that the Cardinals would be very, very happy to bring on a player that you know is just going to find a best role for himself and end up being a superstar. At pick 28, the Buffalo Bills go Jerzon Newton. That's a surprise. Jerzon, you see it right there. He's number 14 on my board. Big fan of him. I don't think the Buffalo Bills would be doing anything but a service to their fans for going best player available. Jerzon Newton's a great guy who can be moving all over the line and is used to the cold weather. I would love to see what that would end up being between Ed Oliver and Jerzon Newton. That'd be nasty. Kansas City Chiefs then select Devontae Walker at 29. Shout out to my boy Rob, pony up, go SMU. And I'm not over the moon about Tez. I think there might be some better players like Troy Franklin that I think could complement Rashee Rice a little bit better, but you can't really replace the extra, he's 6'2", 200. And he's played wide receiver 1. Like, he's already played the role that he needs to play exactly in this offense. So I understand. I'm just not there with Tez yet, but I do respect the wide receiver pick. Pick 30, the Lions go Nate Wiggins. It's a great player. He is in my top 40. Unbelievable field awareness, great height, needs to add some more weight to him, but the Lions would not be mistaken by running this up to the podium, even though Kool-Aid McKinstry, who I think is better, is on the board. I'm not going to shame a team for going after a really damn good player. Niners, of course, continue kicking ass with being able to get a superstar player here in Kool-Aid McKinstry. They need a boundary corner, and it's kind of crazy that he ended up slipping. At pick 32, the Ravens end up going Troy Franklin, essentially to replace OBJ. This is a 1-to-1 fix. I love it. I've done this pick myself. I think Xavier Legette might be more exciting since he has an extra, 40 pounds on him. But, it's still, Troy Franklin's going to be a great pick. And so usually I cut the video there. You just say, okay, well, thanks for watching the video. But this is the beginning of Mock the Mock, then what? So yes, I could have just stopped the video, had a 23 to 25 minute video segment where we talk about what happened. But let's put our own balls on the line. Why am I criticizing other people if I can't be criticized myself? There you go. Pick 33, we're on the board with the Carolina Panthers. And so yes, I already went over that entire draft. There's going to be no trades because there were no trades. And so, starting off at pick 33, I think wide receiver, edge rusher, those are going to be the ways I want to go. Keon Coleman's available. I think giving a reliable YOLO target for Bryce Young while you're still seeing Ike Ekwonu develop and that offensive line be fixed is going to be very valuable. And I want a 50-50 guy to make it a 9 or an 80-20 ball. I need that. So Keon Coleman out of Florida State is going to be going just a little bit north there to the Carolina Panthers. Pick 34 for the Washington Commanders. Again, if we remember correctly, they got Drake Maye. Devontae Walker not on the board. Wouldn't have taken him probably anyways. But we do want to go after one of these offensive tackle positions. The offensive line is not too good. I would say they are damn near cheeks. And Kingsley Suamataia has that left and right tackle versatility. For me, I think that is heavily coveted. At the same time, it is so hard to pass on Braylon Trice. Our next pick isn't until 41. Again, if the draft order is slightly off, blame PFF. I'm 99.5% sure this is right on the money, but there's always some little intricacy that, mock draft database might have that's different than this. So again, apologize for that in case PFFs. I'm going to be going the offensive tackle route. offensive tackle is more key, in my opinion, than edge rusher. I think it's easier to get a value edge rusher than a value offensive tackle. So we're going to be going after Kingsley Suamataia. The versatility is what really sets him apart from the other tackles above him. And so I just believe I have a lot of faith in Kingsley being able to succeed, especially now that he can play both left and right. At pick 35 for the New England Patriots, looking at the value of the players available, I do love the idea of going offensive tackle. It's a little bit early for me. Even though I love Karan Amajaje, I'm a huge fan of him, I'm going to still pass. They got Jayden Daniels earlier in the draft, and so they're going to draft Xavier Legette, 6'3", 227 out of South Carolina. Y'all love it. I've already taken him multiple times in mock drafts before. Y'all are big fans of it. I am too. You have someone who's 230 pounds who can, I think he's almost like a year behind what Malik Neighbors was, and he just adds way more weight to the equation. He's really good after the catch too. Someone who I would not be surprised to see in the first round. He is a little bit older though. That's going to be one of the problems. Pick 36, Arizona Cardinals. Braylon Trice is on the board. Devondre Sweat's on the board. And so far, they've drafted Cooper DeJean and Marvin Harrison. We're not going to get another pick in this, so got to make the most of it. I'm going to get that plug for the defensive interior. Hard to find someone like Devondre Sweat, even though I am essentially saying screw my own board by going after my number 33 player over my number 5. I just think that there's a massive gaping chasm that needs to be filled on the defensive interior, and we're going to get an absolute monstrosity to fill it. Pick 37 for the Los Angeles Chargers, taking Rome Odunze, round at number 1. With this selection, I'd love to go after a corner too. I do think weapon as well as defensive back, kind of that's the progression I like to go. Kamari Lassiter just has so much potential there. He's going to be probably in the 4.2s. He has multiple years starting. He's going to be a great guy to have as your number 2 corner. TJ Tampa might be a little bit better suited for a day 1 role, but Kamari is the guy you go for with the ceiling. Depends on the coaching hire that the Chargers end up with, but if you end up getting someone who's going to be a little bit more like Harbaugh, maybe he's going to appreciate the movement skills of Kamari Lassiter a little bit more than, let's just say, an offensive coach who might want someone who's just a little bit more reliable. Regardless, Kamari Lassiter is going to be the choice. Pick number 38 for the New York Giants. Hard to pass on Braylon Trice at this point. I don't think it's the biggest need for the Giants by a long shot, but you have to eventually go after best player available. And Braylon Trice, to me, certainly is the best player available. You have, even Brian Burns is listed as a potential target for the Giants in the offseason. You need someone to combine there with KT and complement him very, very well. We're going to be going Braylon Trice out of Washington, 6'4", 274, my number 5 player in the draft. Pick 39 for the Tennessee Titans got Joe Alt in round number 1. Looking at Tyler Nubin as a very attractive option here in round 2, but instead, I love TJ Tampa. I love AD Mitchell. I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think there's a wrong choice here by any stretch, but I don't know if you're going to have someone who could be as reliable as TJ Tampa. So that is going to be the selection. I love Kalen King. I have him above TJ Tampa on my board, but Kalen King also doesn't have the exact same frame that TJ Tampa does at 6'2", 200. TJ Tampa has been super reliable for a couple years now. I've been watching him for quite a while. He's definitely worth a second-round choice and just an immediate plug-in starter. Pick 40 for the Atlanta Falcons. You got Michael Penix still on the board. At this point, I think it's worth taking. You got Dallas Turner in the first round. J.J. McCarthy might be the better choice, but it depends, again, on the offensive system that's going to be there. Because I have J.J. McCarthy comp to a better version of Desmond Ridder. Michael Penix at his ceiling is, ridiculously talented. Crazy arm. He really can take shots, and I think he'd be able to use the tight end that y'all drafted at number 4 overall, and Kyle Pitts very, very well. Same thing with Drake London. So I'd be very excited about taking a quarterback here. I do think wide receiver AD Mitchell should be on the board as well, but we're going to end up with Michael Penix, who's slipping most likely for medical and age. Pick 41 for the Commanders. Chris Braswell's here. Hard to say no to him. I actually could also go back-to-back tackles with Karan Amajaje. I'm going to pass on that. even though I do think it's a very, very smart idea. We have not drafted an edge rusher yet for this team, and this team does need an edge rusher after giving both of theirs away. Speaking of, this was the pick they sent to the Bears for their star edge rusher in Montez Sweat. So we got Kingsley Suamataia, big need to get a tackle there. So now we are going to be able to go and target an edge rusher. I have Jonah Ellis ranked above Chris Braswell. I'm a big fan of Jonah Ellis. 246 pounds, plays like he's 260. I think he's going to be a very, very, he's going to be a bright, shining star when all is said and done. Pick number 42 for the Packers. They ended up taking Graham Barton, a versatile offensive lineman, in round 1. Somehow, some way, they got the star safeties here in round 2. So I'm going to go Tyler Nubin, who is a very consistent, high upside safety there from Minnesota, used to playing in those climates as well, and has just been extremely consistent. Pick number 43 for the Minnesota Vikings. They went after a really, really intriguing pick in Byron Murphy in round number 1. And y'all can see Byron Murphy is still my interior defensive lineman 1. I think it's Chris Braswell or it's JJ McCarthy. Even if you bring back Kirk somehow, some way, which if Bill ends up going to Atlanta, he's probably going to Atlanta. But if you can somehow find a veteran or just start this guy day 1, because apparently y'all are really good at making pretty mid quarterbacks look good and just letting JJ develop into a really talented quarterback, it's going to be the right move. So JJ McCarthy then goes to the Vikings. At pick 44, we are back with the Saints, who drafted Bo Nix in the first round. They would not be remiss to go after a Cam Kinchens here. 2 safeties that are both veterans who have 1 year left in their contract. Cam Kinchens is also BPA, so you get great value with a great position, and you get a year of mentorship. At pick 45 for the Las Vegas Raiders, they got Olu Fashanu in round number 1. Quarterback-wise, the next best one is Joe Milton, in my opinion. I know I'm in the minority on that, but of course, it's not a very good quarterback class at the same time, so, take it as you will. I think that you could look at defensive interior for this pick. Chris Jenkins is phenomenal, and you're just going to be essentially, again, winning those battles of the trenches. It's the smartest thing to do. Once you are able to control the trenches, everything else just becomes much, much easier. It's much harder to have success on the outside if you can't win on the inside. It's a lot easier to have success on the outside when you win. So we're going to continue winning. Chris Jenkins, my number 32 player in the class. He is about 300 pounds, really good run defender, and he's very versatile, so you can kick him all around the defensive line. So I would love to see how many packages you can get Chris Jenkins into. At pick number 46 for the Philadelphia Eagles, went tackle in round number 1. Not going to be the position I necessarily target for him, but still understandable because it is very logical. I'm actually going to look at Chris Braswell here. You don't really have very many edge rushers left on roster. Pretty much BG did say he was going to come back for 1 more year. Fletch did as well. And then you start hearing what Jordan Davis is saying, how the torch is being passed and how it almost feels like the old heads are starting to leave the building. Some other names I could mention here, defensive back. I do think Kalen King, because he has the ability to play in the slot if need be, just really can be all over the place. And I think he's going to be great as a starting boundary corner. He is a top 20 player on my board. I have him there at 19. He's had some bad games, but to be fair, haven't all the Eagles corners had bad games? I think Kalen King is going to be an instant asset in the run game. And, the only issue with him is that he's 5'11". But he also then can kick in the slot if the future is truly going to be Eli Ricks, Keely Ringo, and then Kalen King. So we're going to be taking Kalen here. Keep him in Pennsylvania. We are Penn State. Pick number 47 for the Colts. Drafted Brock Bowers in round 1, which is crazy. And this team, I believe, had 4 different pass rushers with 7+ sacks, which is great, but there's not one lead dog. So we're going to be selecting a great faller in this draft in Chris Braswell. The value is proper. This team should be looking for a little bit extra help. I always go wide receiver with AD Mitchell when he's here anyways, so it's just going to be a nice change of pace. Pick 48 for the New York Giants. They went after, what have we done for them? Braylon Trice, Braylon Trice as well as Malik Neighbors. That's going to be a crazy one too. I mean, both those guys, top 15, top 16 players on my board. So do we have any more of them? It's funny that I say that because one of the players I'd love to take to New York is Christian Haynes. and he is also top 15. Let's just be nice to the Giants today. Let's do it. They can use some help on the interior of the offensive line. Christian Haynes is extremely athletic, and I think will pair up very, very well with the rest of that young offensive line as they continue to develop. Pick 49, the Jacksonville Jaguars drafted Quinyon Mitchell in round 1. I know exactly the player bulk you would love here in round 2, and that is Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. Versatile, you can play guard or center. I prefer, actually, even over Christian Haynes, I would maybe go Jackson Powers Johnson because it's very rare that you'll find a center that has a lower IQ than a guard. They're just very smart individuals, have to pretty much anchor down the whole line. So I do love that. You could switch both of them and then still end up with the same result. So if you like that, go for it. If you don't, okay, cool. Let's continue on here, though. The Bengals took Amarius Mims in round number 1. I love the idea of Leonard Taylor being there with or to replace DJ Reader. So much untapped potential. The dude's still trying to figure out who he is. I'm surprised he ended up coming out. Could go Rucororo to pair him up with Myles Murphy, but Leonard Taylor has a little bit more size on him as well. Pick 51, the Rams selected, who'd they go with in round number 1? Leatu Latu. Now, I talked about going left tackle before, and you got Karan Ahmedjadjeh here. Surprised PFF really is that high on Karan. I still have him in, I believe, my 60s, but that's also because of the quad tear. So we won't be able to see him at the Senior Bowl, which breaks my heart, but, hey, the only thing that the Senior Bowl is going to be breaking is my wallet, and that is A-okay. It is worth it. We're going to be going Karan Ahmedjadjeh, though. It's maybe not the best player available, but I just love the idea of having so much athleticism in that offensive line. He will be able to start week 1, but we just won't be able to see it in person. Pick 52, the Steelers have drafted a star right tackle in Amarius Mims. I got to go for the storyline, right? We got to go for it. Let's do the Eagles, but on the offensive line side. We got Cedric Van Pran here. It's a bit early for him, in my opinion, but nothing beats that chemistry. Amarius Mims, Cedric Van Pran, Broderick Jones, and then also Darnell Washington. So you could have technically 4 of the lead blockers there for Georgia just a little bit over a year and a half ago on the Steelers, which would be sick as a Steelers fan. Center is a huge position for us to upgrade. I think there is a massive fall off after Cedric Van Pran in terms of the potential. I do like what I see from Zach Frazier, to be fair, but I think he's on the same tier as Drake Nugent, and I'll leave it right there. I honestly might take Zach Frazier here. I just think Cedric Van Pran, in terms of the years he played, the system he's played, and especially his dominance over defensive backs and linebackers down the field, is just going to provide a little bit more value. But the Dolphins ended up going after a star wide receiver in Brian Thomas in round number 1. In round number 2, we honestly could go Javon Foster and kick him to guard. I think that's a smart move. Javon needs a bit more training as well. He needs to understand how to handle counters a little bit better. I think that's a very smart idea. I have Javon Foster, to be completely transparent, as a top 64 player. So there's a reason for it. We're going to get Javon Foster. He will be the eventual succession plan there for Terron Armstead, and we're going to use him as a guard in the short run as he gets ready for it. Pick 54 for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see what type of coach comes into the building, but I'm going to be going after a linebacker. Love Edgerrin Cooper, but Junior Colson, man, I mean, you can't get that 6'3", 250 frame on many different dudes, and he is my linebacker 1 of the class. I'm going to be continuing to send him there to Philly. This is going to be an easy pick for me, though. At pick number 55 for the Cleveland Browns, A.D. Mitchell is still available, and I love A.D. Mitchell. I don't really care the other options that are available. Get your best player and get a position of need. This is exactly that. Pick 56 for the Dallas Cowboys. Got that left tackle in. That's kind of the key. I think that was a really good start point. Now, the next position is really the one where, I might just go full Jerry Jones and go Zach Frazier here. I think that's a very smart move. Zach Frazier, again, I think there is a drop-off after Cedric Van Pran because of the system he ran. But Zach Frazier, he's going to be at the Senior Bowl too. We'll be able to confirm or deny this very, very soon. He really does pop off now. He ascended over the past year, and I love seeing that progression. Was a big fan of Zach Frazier to start out. Drake Nugent from he was there at Stanford doing a very good job too. Like, can't complain about any of them. I'm going to go Zach Frazier, though. I think it's very realistic that he goes round number 2. Pick number 57 for the Green Bay Packers. We've already selected a star safety in Tyler Nubin, as well as Graham Barton. So at pick 57, I still see some really solid corners on the board. And unfortunately, leave it to PFF for saying, screw you, my guy. I have Dwight McGlothern, cornerback out of Arkansas, as one of my sleeper players. He's there at 24 on my board. I'm going to be very generous to the Green Bay Packers. Even though I technically am a Steelers and Bears fan, I've actually been more so of a dick to my own franchises by sending, or by at least liking to send, players that ruin my franchises over to our rivals. Pick 58, the Buccaneers took a cornerback in round number 1 in Ennis Rakestraw Jr. at pick number 58. Looking at the options available. Could look to get some extra youth in that receiving core. I really love Adisa Isaac, though. Sometimes you don't have to swing for the fences when you're trying to replace veterans. Adisa Isaac is just so smart, and I love the field awareness of him. He just knows where the ball is 24/7. Maybe not the most prolific NFL edge rusher that you'll find, but one, we're here in round number 2. And 2, you're trying to get somebody who is going to hit. And this is going to be a player that instantly hits. You want to swing for the fences, go after, where is he at? Xavier Thomas. If you want to go for something that's a little bit more consistent and a high yield percentage return, that's going to be Adisa Isaac. So we'll take him out of Penn State. Got to show him some love. Pick 59 for the Houston Texans. Let's get that defense interior that I was talking about. You got some really interesting options here. McKinley Jackson offers the most size. Rook, to be fair, this class is not one for the big run-stuffing defensive interiors. Unfortunately, I think I actually have to go away from that route. Schultz didn't end up producing as well as I thought he would in the playoffs. Though he has some key drops here and there. I think Jatavian Sanders out of Texas might be your best bang for your buck. So we'll go after Jatavian Sanders here to be the future at tight end for CJ Stroud. At pick number 60 for the Buffalo Bills, they went after Jerzon Newton in round number 1. You got some good wide receivers here. So we're going to be selecting Jalen Polk to be the wide receiver 2 to Stephon Diggs. 6'2", 204 pounds, great after the catch. Someone who I have a lot of respect for and doesn't get a lot of love. And pick 61, we're with the Chiefs, who took Tez Walker in round number 1. I am very happy to select one of my favorite players in the draft, Rook Ororo, star out of Clemson. Defensive interior, versatile, 295, so he's big, but he also is extremely muscular, and he's also able to play edge rusher, which I know that KC loves to move around their defensive interior all over the place. He's going to be a very, very, very valuable asset there for KC. At pick number 62 for the Detroit Lions, got Nate Wiggins in round number 1. At pick number 62, looking at the edge rushers, Javon Sullivan, very intriguing option. I would again say Xavier Thomas, another intriguing option. Don't think he ends up going, but it certainly gets me a little bit excited at the very minimum. I think Brandon Dorlus is a dark horse candidate for this pick. Mason Smith also, he ended up declaring when I think he could have returned. I'm not sure if he used up his eligibility, but I guess you don't really declare for the draft if you have used up your eligibility. It is what it is. But I think he wouldn't be coming out if he ended up thinking he was going to be a day 3 type of dude. Interior offensive line-wise, to get that right guard, Cooper Beebe could be your man. I really do like Cooper Beebe. I want to show him some love. I haven't gone interior offensive line for the Lions this early for a very long time. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. Cooper Beebe will end up being the right guard of the future there for Detroit. Pick number 63 for the San Francisco 49ers. I got Kool-Aid McKinstry in round number 1. Mind-blowing. But at pick number 63, Patrick Paul might be the right choice to try to train at right tackle. I like Blake Fisher as more of that developmental guy, to be fair. It doesn't really matter because I do think this team will naturally continue to get better and better and better regardless of the talent at their tackle positions. But we'll go Patrick Paul just because he has a little bit more prowess and he can probably start at any of the positions and he will eventually be the successor there for Trent Williams. And at pick 64, nice. At pick 64 with the Ravens ending off our beautiful mock the mock then what. I am going to be looking probably for defensive interior. You know, I love going wide receiver for this team. Even going offensive line, to be fair, I think is a smart move. But Blake Fisher doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. And in offensive interior, I do love that Andrew Voorhees is still potentially available. Defensive back, nothing that gets me going. Also, Jabbar Muhammad, not mistaken, is in the transfer portal right now. Don't know why he is still listed here. Wide receiver has already been taken. Not many better positions to go to defensive interior. I love the versatility that Brand Dorless brings to the table. Another guy is about 290 pounds who is a flex edge rusher defensive interior. If there's any team that's going to make it work, it's a Harbaugh team. So I'm going to trust Brand Dorless to succeed there for Baltimore. That is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the show as always. See you on the far side.